What's your favorite? If I had to ask you a question, John,
Yes.
what is your favorite building down in Tribeca? Because I know you're more familiar with that inventory than I am, because it's kind of like where you cut your teeth.
I would say that's correct, because I've sold in a lot of the buildings down there.
Welcome to the John and Jonathan Sell NYC podcast, where experienced expert New York City real estate brokers John Gasdaska and Jonathan Conlon break down what's happening in the market, what you need to know whether you're a buyer, seller, or agent, and their insight into the future with a little bit of fun along the way. In this episode, John and Jonathan are diving deep into one of New York City's most desirable neighborhoods, Tribeca. From cultural venues to history to which property types you can find there, they're giving their expert opinion and advice.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the John and Jonathan Sell NYC podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm warming up now because I was just outside all morning showing apartments, and
it is cold.
A little cold out there. So today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about another neighborhood, and this is John's little baby.
One of my favorites.
And I taught him something about it already, which is really fantastic. And we're definitely going to talk about that.
Don't tell me. Okay, I'll come clean.
Oh, come clean. Little neighborhood that has grown tremendously since I started selling real estate, 18 years ago. Tribeca is now like the hot spot, has been the hot spot for very, very long. But where you started selling real estate, I didn't really have a huge foray into it until you and I started working together, because the person that I was working for at Brown Harris was an Upper East Side broker, and mainly worked up in the upper parts of Manhattan. So Tribeca should be interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff going on down there. It's always got a lot of buzz around it with all the movie stars and stuff, which you will dive into. But first and foremost, John, how was your week? How you doing?
My week was pretty good. To be very candid with you, to the audience, I'm dealing with
show it.
Foot surgery.
That's awesome.
And I got my stitches and my pin out. So not to gross everybody out, but I'm still hobbling along. I have this soft cast now, but my energy's back. It's just that I gotta, I'm praying to get the sandal, but the stitches, everything's out. It's just that it's going to take me a little bit longer, but, so I still can't.
It's hard to keep you down, but I think you've managed pretty well, actually.
Thank you.
All things considered, I was expecting you to be a little balder because you're pulling your hair out, but I think you did pretty well.
Close, but you see all the gray. So
that was there before,
but I'm good, because what's been interesting, not being able to show the apartments, is managing the team and managing the people who are on our team, who are all really, really capable. I negotiated a transaction while I'm here, and I have had probably 5 to 6 calls with sellers. So we have quite a bit of real estate, which is going to be coming on the market in the next 1 to 3 months. And that's good.
Somewhere in that range. Yeah.
As long as I get my, I have to be, some of them won't come on till March, April. Yeah. But then hopefully by then I'm going to be able to walk with my shoes. Hey, anyway, how about you? How was your week?
It's a good goal to have. Yeah. It was good. It was actually, it was a good week. It was, it was a little slow actually for me to have to actually go into the city. I only went into the city today, which was a little odd, because I've been in pretty consistently at least 2 or 3 days a week over the past, since we opened, basically, opened back up. So it was a little odd, but oddly nice to work from home a lot, and I got a lot done, which is good. I could be fairly productive, and
you were very productive. You put together a deal.
We put together a deal, yes. So yeah, all in all, it was good. And on to the next one. You mentioned us.
Thank you publicly for managing everything, because let's face it, you've been working very hard while I've been, watching Netflix. I have not been doing that.
Sitting back eating bonbons, watching Netflix. I know how you do. No. You have to go back on that diet.
I am. Trust me, we're not going to go there. It was COVID, and then the foot thing, and it's like, forget.
I almost sent you a bunch of chocolates just to
thank God you're only looking from like here up. So anyway,
Tribeca.
Yes,
Let's start with the history as we normally do. What? And
Just to clarify to the audience, Tribeca got its name for being the triangle below Canal Street. Okay, that's what Jonathan was talking about, everybody. Do you know that
I did skip over that? I was going to let that go and not even
20 years, and I just learned that that's where they got the name. So I don't know. Okay, so
much like every other new neighborhood that we've seen come about, Nomad and what are some of the Nolita, all these neighborhoods that aren't really neighborhoods yet. I mean, they don't have real definitive. They're not a traditional neighborhood. Soho's got those
below Canal, over to West Side Highway, really till about what do you think about Church Street or Lafayette or east, and it goes now. The southern portion will go all the way down to Murray. It even goes down to Barclay.
Yeah, it goes down to Park Place. The Woolworth Building really stretched it, down to Park Place there.
It's a little enclave, and I think just to go back in the history, like most of Manhattan, it was farmland originally, and there are these. It was manufacturing as well, so a lot of 19th and 20th century buildings, and it was a lot of warehouses. So in the 90s, in the late 90s, developers started to come in, just like they'd started to do in Soho, and they started to convert the buildings to condominiums. And so when I started selling real estate in 1999, Tribeca was just igniting. And
you should have bought something.
Oh, if only. So there was this. What makes Tribeca unique versus something, let's say, like Soho, which is heavily trafficked, is that Tribeca can be extremely sleepy, particularly on the weekends. And so it attracts a certain caliber of people. A lot of movie stars that live there, or people of notoriety who don't like the attention of, let's say, Central Village or Soho. They love the quiet nature. James Gandolfini, clear example. I would see him and Harvey Keitel all the time walking because it's kind of accepted down there. Just people can do their own thing. And so then as these warehouses were converted, these developers really started creating some amazing condominium product down there, as well as there's a handful of co-ops. So then also Robert De Niro, who's a big fixture down there, he started his film festival in 2002. And it is a world-renowned film festival that Manhattan looks forward to every year. And it still remains, it has attracted not only a significant profile of buyer, but major restaurateurs have gone down there. So you have some of the most fashionable restaurants in Manhattan located in Tribeca. So that gives you an overall view. It is an amazing place to live. If I had to live anywhere besides the Upper West Side, that's where I would live. So what are the nearby neighborhoods?
All right. So no, as you said, triangle below Canal. So Canal Street borders it on the to the north. Just on the other side of Canal is another one of those neighborhoods that are sort of new, but not really a neighborhood yet, of Soho, that is now referred to as Hudson Square. Then you have, Soho, Nolita, Battery Park City is going to be, it's that appendage on the western border there on the other side of the West Side Highway. Greenwich Village sort of to the northeast, Financial District to the south. Yeah. Oh, and so to the east side, you have Chinatown. We'll leave it at that. How's that? I love Tribeca. I love the feeling of it, especially that northwestern corridor just between Canal and going down like 5 or 6 blocks. That's a really cool. You have the old cobblestone streets. You've got like you mentioned, the old warehouse buildings. So you get these huge loft apartments, which is beautiful. But I'm jumping ahead in terms of the real estate. One of the big
can't
draws.
help ourselves.
Can't help it. It's so exciting, John.
It is. It makes me excited to talk about the real estate there. Go ahead.
When we first started working in Tribeca, and you and I teamed up 14 and a half years ago, We, like one of the big draws down there was a particular public school, which is the PS 234. But there are a lot of schools in the area and such. But that always seemed to me, anyways, like that's what people were always talking about was PS 234. And of course, now the huge influx of people that have come into the neighborhood have sort of made it hard to get into PS 234. And I think it's a lottery system now. Like many of these schools, these schools gain, especially the public schools, gain notoriety and popularity for being a great school and having great teachers and so on and so forth. And then everybody, like population floods there. And then next thing you know, it's really hard to get into those schools. But that population, it draws the school system to that area and such. So we do have a lot of other schools in the area. What other ones pop out at you?
So you have PS 150, PS 89, 130, the Spruce Street School, which is very popular at PS 397, PS 343, 124, 1.
Just list them all, bud.
I'm listing them all because, very honestly, the Spruce Street School and PS 234, but they're very good schools down there, as well as there's Catholic schools, St. Joe's, St. Anthony's, and then there are colleges down there. So you have Manhattan Community College, Metropolitan College, New York Academy of Art, and there's the New York Law School down in Tribeca.
There's a lot of buildings of note down there. As we mentioned, there's these big loft buildings that have attracted a lot of people because you get the extra high ceilings, which are certainly have been in major demand for a long time. Since I've been selling real estate, people have, wanted the higher ceilings versus like the post wars with 8'3", 8'6" ceilings. So these big old loft buildings down there, and there's too many to count because they're basically, most of them are low rise buildings. They're 6 to 10 stories tall. But there's been a few taller ones. There's been some really interesting conversions down there, most notably the Woolworth Building, the top of the Woolworth Building. That was maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago at this point that they started to convert that. Mm-hmm. Some beautiful, massive apartments in that building that I've seen, half floor and full floor. The Jenga building, which is the 56 Leonard, which is a real interesting addition to our skyline. If nothing else, that building had some issues with those massive windows they did. I think they even dropped one of those windows, if I remember correctly, when that was going up, and it smashed on the streets. We'll have to fact check that, but it was. I seem to remember maybe they almost dropped it. I don't know. There was something with those
that was years delayed.
Years delayed. 443 Greenwich, which we sold in to a very big celebrity. And that's a very celebrity-driven building there because it's really cool. It has that the drive-through garage, so it has an entrance on both the north and south of it, and people can drive in one side out the other. Very easy for paparazzi-free existence, I guess. The Hubert, 7 Hubert, which is a beautiful building. When was that built? Do you remember?
That would have been built at around probably 2000 and maybe 2002, 2003.
It was early 2000s, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
beautiful building.
That remains one of the most expensive price per square foots down there. Some of those buildings, but then you have 70 Vestry, which is new.
70 Vestry, yep.
Mm-hmm. 27 Next
to the Hubert, you have 145 Hudson, which we sold. Beautiful Skylofts building, which has those massive, half floor,
big windows.
Yeah, wall of windows. Listen, the real estate down there is always fun to look at because many of them are converted. There's not a lot of new developments. They're converted from these old warehouses. So you end up with some quirkiness and some, just big open spaces, which are quite a vast difference from what we normally see in the Upper East, Upper West Side. What's your favorite? If I had to ask you a question, John,
Yes.
what is your favorite building down in Tribeca? Because I know you're more familiar with that inventory than I am, because it's kind of like where you cut your teeth.
I would say that's correct, because I've sold in a lot of the buildings down there. And I would tell you that there are so many amazing buildings down there. And where Northmore and Franklin and Beach and all those main streets there were so heavily popular. And Dwayne, at the northern corridor that you talked about, has just really come into its own in the past, I would say 5 to 6 years, where 70 Vestry and 443 Greenwich are. And I would say that 443 Greenwich is probably my favorite building down there, just because of the quality of finish. And as you were saying, the apartments are beautiful. The amenities are unsurpassed. And it holds a very special place. I will tell you then, on the flip side, 7 Hubert and 27 Northmore, where we just sold.
Yeah.
Those are great.
I gotta say that deal you did at 27 Northmore, because just as it does happen every now and then, we both had buyers that we were working with and saw that penthouse. And I mean, we've talked about this before. I think one of the really interesting things that I love about our jobs is being able to see the city from a different perspective, from the views. And that apartment that you sold to our buyers, amazing view of Tribeca from a different perspective than I've ever seen it.
From terrace.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that big terrace is like, that big.
How about you? Do you have a favorite building down there?
I'm partial to Hubert. I really love 7 Hubert. I love that building. I really like 145 Hudson. If there's issues with the building, but I love that you can get high up and get these massive views around there, around that building, even to the north. To the south, of course, you get Financial District, and you get the Freedom Tower and those big glass buildings and such. But to the north is a really pretty view, because you get all the way up to the Empire and Chrysler and the Midtown buildings and such. So it's hard to pick my favorite. And then some of the ones off the beaten path are great little co-ops,
About 90 Franklin.
90 Franklin, which is the old bank building that we sold in this, what was that, last year? No, 2019, I guess we sold that. Right?
No, 2020 it closed.
Beginning of 2020, yeah. It all blends. 2020 felt like it was 5 years long. So in my defense. So I love it. Listen, and because it's full of these smaller buildings, I always discover a new building. I'm like, I've never been in that building, because when you have a small building, they don't, they may only trade one apartment a year, if that, so unless we have a buyer, it's not like you and I are just floating around the city, just seeing inventory just for the sake of seeing inventory. Yeah. Those days are long gone, but so we get to discover these new buildings all the time. You go to the Upper East Side or Upper West Side, where you have 200, 300 unit buildings and larger. Chances are we've been in those buildings before.
So as you were saying, there these wonderfully old buildings, and then you have also, one of the things that I adore is the mom and pop shops and the restaurants and beautiful bakeries and things like that, and wonderful eateries. But I think what also makes Tribeca so unique in terms of its whole vibe and atmosphere are the fact that you have these old buildings that have been converted. They're very cool and chic. And then you have, what's this? This wonderful, top restaurant in Manhattan that's almost incognito.
Yeah.
And as well as all these kind of little boutiques that aren't as trafficked as the Soho boutiques. Wonderful bakeries down there. There's Billy's Bakery, which I always stumble upon. Billy's.
Somehow they it's like a magnet for John Gasdaska.
Off Duane Park. And I don't know the name, but you have to find it if you want. I went in there one night and I think it's fabulous. But there's all sorts of wonderful Frechette Bakery, Duane Park Patisserie. That's what it is. Thank you, Duane Park Patisserie. So again, I judge a neighborhood by its bakeries, and that gets an A+. But then also some of the best restaurants in the city are down there. One of our top favorites, Odeon. Boom. Yeah. I love Odeon.
That got famous by what's his name was down there. Leo loves to go to the Odeon.
I was there.
I don't know if he goes there anymore, but back in the day,
I saw him years ago there. But then
I saw him there once.
Then you have Bubby's is some of the best homemade food, and
Bubby's is great. I was just there the other day. I was telling you, I was there the other day, and we got a couple of the appetizers, and I thought we were sharing. It turns out we weren't. So I ended up eating a lot of the grilled cheese or something like that.
Of course you did. Anything with cheese and
anything with cheese. What kind of cheese are you eating today? That's what he likes to say. Yeah, fantastic restaurant. So it's a weird dichotomy Tribeca has, because there are these super quiet little parts. Like I mentioned, that northwestern corridor, although going down there repeatedly, we're seeing there are more opening up in that little area. And further south on the southern section of Tribeca seems to be more of the restaurants and such, and on Hudson and down as you approach down towards Chambers and such. And I'm sure there's more nightlife down there, and these secret
Tribeca Grill is down there too. Robert De Niro's restaurant, Tribeca Grill, down on Greenwich.
Oh yeah.
And some of the really cool chic hotels as well. Where can you go to grocery shop?
Yeah.
Whole Foods. Well,
there is a Whole Foods. Yep. Down at, what is that? 101 Warren has it in it, which is a new high rise that has 2 towers, and it's
also where Tribeca didn't at one time have the cachet of Soho, but you have walking distance to Soho. But now on the southern end, in the financial district that borders on the south side, Tribeca, you have all the boutiques down where the Oculus is, and where all of that is now becoming very chic. All the retailers are going down there, if we ever have retail after COVID. What about public transportation? Okay, so you got the one line at Canal, one line at Franklin. All the express lines end at Chambers Street. The A, the C, and the E are right at Canal Street. So all sorts of subways go into Tribeca. And then what makes it cool is that you have the running and the jogging path that go all the way from Battery Park City all the way up to the GW.
And some great piers out there that have been developed out there for, some additional park space and outdoor sort of common area. Because there's not really a lot of green space down there in Tribeca. A couple.
That little Duane Park.
Yeah, Duane Park.
But also AMC Theaters, a multiplex in Battery Park City, which is great. There's like 14 cinemas down there. So just wonderful, wonderful place to be. What about you? Is there anything that we missed? I think we caught it all.
I think we got pretty much everything. But listen, if we missed something, tell us. I would say, listen, my number one favorite thing about Tribeca is that it feels like old New York.
Perfect way of putting it.
With the exception of like the Jenga building and a couple developments that have happened, for the most part, 98% of it is, even in the new buildings, were developed to look like the old buildings. So that warehousey sort of lofty look is still basically intact. The cobblestone streets, although supremely annoying to drive on, it slows the traffic down to a crawl, and it's like this quiet little enclave. It's certainly, like you said, if you had another neighborhood that you would want to live in besides the Upper West Side, Tribeca would be it. I would say Tribeca is certainly very high, if not at the top of my list as well, for those reasons. New Yorkers that live here full time and such, most of us like that quietness around home, So,
and if we were going out to dinner, let's say with clients or so, we would not opt to go into the middle of Times Square.
no,
You know?
no, we're not going to, what is it, Tad's Steakhouse.
Yeah, we would opt to go. So if anybody's listening to this podcast who has never been to Manhattan or has come but always goes to Soho, take a look at Tribeca. You will not be sorry. So anyway, listen, great talking to you. Thank you all for being a part of our John and Jonathan Sell NYC podcast. I think it was a great podcast. I hope they enjoyed it. I had a hell of a time.
Always self-complimenting. Yeah.
It is always a joy. I learn something each time when I talk to you on this podcast. South of Canal, triangle south of Canal.
No, that'd be
whatever.
Trisoca.
Triangle below Canal.
There you go.
Thank you all for watching. Be healthy, safe, and most of all,
remain in gratitude. We will see you next week. Have a great week and check us out. Find us, talk to us, tell us what we missed.
Thanks for watching or listening to the John and Jonathan Sell NYC podcast. If you want to find us online or sign up to get our monthly and quarterly market stats, come on over to our website, johnandjonathansellnyc.com. Or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere else with the handle @John and Jonathan Sell NYC. And if you want to grab the show notes, go to johnandjonathансellnyc.com/podcast. If this show is entertaining, helpful, or informative, consider telling friends or family or leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Those are some of the best ways of supporting our efforts, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in. We can't wait to share what's coming up next. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss our next episode, and we'll see you next time.